Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today we are talking about the sewing machine. We love the sewing machine and we use it so often, but I do get a lot of questions about just how to use the sewing machine. So we're gonna go and do a little overview of this sewing machine, and I hope it can be helpful. I'm going to be using a Brother GX37, but a lot of the sewing machines work the same way, so hopefully you can get a little bit of insight from this video. Let's get started. All right, so here's our sewing machine, and I love this is a basic model. This is one of those that you can use for pretty much anything. So I have our different little wheels up here that just look like, what in the world do I use these for? Okay, we'll start with the one on the far right. Now, all your different machines will have an instruction manual that will show you just exactly what these are for, but they also have little pictures that show you what each one does. As you can see, this one shows a straight stitch, and it starts really little and gets really wide. That tells me that this is my stitch length. How long do I want that straight stitch, or how long do I want that whatever stitch I'm using? And then this middle button, as you can see, it looks like a little zigzag, gets smaller and then wider. This shows me how wide do I want to make my stitch. How long, how wide do I want it? So you can, this one, if you're using a straight stitch per se, you're just gonna leave it on the 0 because a straight stitch doesn't go wide. But if you're using a zigzag stitch, let's say you're working with a knit fabric, you might want to make it wider, a wider zigzag stitch, and I'll show you that in a minute. And then this last button talks about tension. How tight do you want the bobbin to pull? Sometimes we want to change that depending on what kind of fabric you're using. You might want to change it on what kind of stitch you want to do, and a lot of stitches or a lot of different things will tell you to change your tension. If I'm shearing or something like that, I'm going to loosen the tension so it doesn't hold so tight to that thread. So these are what these three are for. On this sewing machine, we have this little circle to show us what stitch we want to use. So here's all the different stitches that the sewing machine has. Different machines have a different way to show that. Some are have like a keypad or different things like that. But honestly, the most used stitches will be your straight stitch and your zigzag or stretch stitch that you probably use for sewing. So if you want like a straight stitch on number 2, we'll turn it to number 2. Number 3 is a zigzag stitch, and then once you do that, you can use your dials up top to make it wider or shorter or however you want. Next, we'll talk about this little button right here. This little button, do you see that little sign right there? It's your turn button. So what you do is, a lot of times when you're sewing something, you want to go back over it once you're done stitching. So once you start, you go forward, push the button, it goes backwards, and then you let go and keep going forward. Then when you finish, you go off the end, push the button, go back, go forward, and that will help your stitch catch at the end so it doesn't come unraveled later. Okay, so now that I know what all these buttons do, what's the next step? Well, the next step is to thread your bobbin. Your bobbin is what's gonna go underneath and what's gonna pull underneath and what's gonna have that thread that comes underneath and makes the stitch. So we're gonna go ahead and thread our bobbin. So I have some thread here, and we're going to put that on that first little knob right there. And the really cool thing about most sewing machines is that they have a little diagram at the top of how you're supposed to thread the bobbin and everything else. As you can see in this diagram, we start with number 1, which goes under the threading, and then number 2, we cross right over that little point right there. Now we're gonna go over to number 3, which is our bobbin. As you can see, there's this little hole in our bobbin that we put that thread through. That actually might be the hardest part of the whole thing. Then we're going to put our bobbin right on this little knob right here and pull it right over. Once we pull it over, our sewing machine is ready to thread that bobbin. You're gonna hit your foot, and there it goes. Once you're done filling your bobbin as much as you want to fill it, you're gonna turn it over and pull it up. And your bobbin is threaded. where does my bobbin go? Well, my bobbin goes inside my casing. As you can see, it's all I did, and I'm gonna show you this again. All I did is push this little lid back and remove it. It really isn't that hard, guys. I'm just making it super hard. Then you're gonna grab your bobbin and you're gonna have it face up. And there's usually like a little picture on there that shows you just exactly how to do it. You're gonna put it face up. You're gonna bring your thread over, and there's these little discs that you're gonna get your thread into. And we're gonna go up and around the whole thing. I'm gonna put the lid back on. And there's a little knife there that just clips it right off. All right, we're almost done. Now all we need to do is thread the needle. We're also gonna follow directions for that. Here's my number 1. Now this is the number 1 for your actual thread. So we're gonna go, and the first thing it wants you to do, it wants you to go through these little area right here, because it shows you in the picture. That was number 1, and then number 2, number 3, and we go up. Here is number 4. And really, you need to turn your knob, your side knob, and I'll show you that in a minute, until this little silver thing is sticking up, because that's what we're going to pass our thread through. Okay, and then we're going to go back down to number 5, down to number 5. Then we'll go to number 6, which is right behind the needle. Number 6, and after number 6, some sewing machines have a little self-threader. If your sewing machine has a self-threader, we're going to put our thread right behind it, bring it forward, push the self-threader down, push it forward, and let it thread our needle. There it is, threaded. There's a lot of the thread coming out. And our needle is ready. We're going to go ahead and put it right there on the foot and get ready. This is a foot, by the way. You can take it on and off. And this right here is actually what's going to hold your fabric down. So you can change that and add a different kind of foot, like for different things that you're going to be doing with your sewing machine, and all that information will be in your manual for that. All right, so we are now ready to sew. We're going to place my fabric on here. This little wheel on the side is what moves your needle up and down, so we can move that needle all the way down. There is a little foot over here that you push down, and that makes your foot go down. Now, if we're gonna start, let's try a straight stitch, which is a number 2. Let's make it a number 3. It's a 0 because we're just going straight. So now that it's ready, we're gonna go ahead and go forward. Ooh, let's go backwards so that our stitch is caught. We're gonna move that wheel all the way so that our needle goes all the way up, and push our foot up. And now we pull our thread out, and there is our straight stitch. Now, sometimes straight stitch, you have to make it a little bit longer with the knit, because it kind of gets caught on there. And I don't think I have a needle. This is not a stretch needle, so that one sometimes makes a difference too. Let's try a zigzag stitch. We're gonna move on to number 3. We're gonna make it a number 3 width. Let's make it a number 4 width. And then let's just make it a number 3 length. And so foot down, needle down, and here we go. And now we're going to pull it up. My needle's already up, so we're good on that. And there is a little knife on the side of your sewing machine. Most of them have it where you can cut your thread. And there is my zigzag stitch. Now, you always want to check it, make sure how wide, how big you want that zigzag stitch. I think I want it way bigger than that because it's kind of small right here. So it doesn't give me much of a stretch. That's a little bit of a small zigzag stitch, and that's why sometimes there's bunching. Again, like I said, you probably need a ballpoint needle for knit, so it will be a little bit better, gives you a little bit better stretch. But that is it. That is our sewing machine in a nutshell. All right, friends, I really hope this little overview helped you to see how easy it really is to use the sewing machine. Please let me know if you have any questions. Come join us on our Facebook or Instagram. And comment, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!